Welcome to a special edition of Legal AF. Our audience is very concerned about how Donald Trump is trying to exploit the shutdown, and he is trying to exploit the shutdown. He's pulled the emergency brake on the government to kind of change the narrative of a failing presidency, but groups like Democracy Forward are making sure that doesn't happen. There's new litigation, as we predicted, that has now been filed about the shutdown and in all different ways, in permutations. And of course, we've got the continued follow-up. Last time we had Skye Perriman with us from Democracy Forward. We talked about the mechanism or logistics about bringing a Freedom of Information Act request first, and maybe you have to bring a lawsuit. Well, something we talked about together related to Tom Homan accepting a bag full of cash before he was, but knew was going to be the border czar, FBI taxpayer cash that he thought was a bribe. And that video is still out there and has not been turned over. So now we've got litigation. And then we've talked a lot on Midas Touch and Legal AF about the H-1B program for skilled professionals from overseas to help supplement our employment base here in the United States for the American economy, how that's been wrecked by Donald Trump announcing that he's going to jack the price up to between $100,000 and $1 million or more for skilled workers to be brought into this country. And I can't think of anybody better to update us on all those matters than Skye Perriman, founder, CEO of Democracy Forward. Skye, how are you?
It's good to see you. I'm good.
You too. Let's kick it off with the shutdown litigation, the shutdown showdown. Tell us about make our audience feel better. What's Democracy Forward doing about it?
This is really unbelievable, right? I mean, this is a president that controls all parts of the federal government. There's never in the history of our country been a shutdown when your own party controls all of the government, but yet we are in 2025 and here we are. So Democracy Forward's been really fast at work. So just before the shutdown, when the president started threatening that he would manipulate a shutdown, again, a shutdown that it's unclear why we're having a shutdown since he controls all of these elements of government, but that he would seek to fire more civil servants to prevent the government from doing the work for people during the shutdown, to try to abuse that shutdown. We filed a lawsuit on behalf of the largest federal workers union and a range of plaintiffs. Over the weekend, our lawyers worked night and day and filed a motion for a temporary restraining order in order to prevent these reductions in force or these terminations that the president has promised. So we will update you on that as we're still waiting for the case to get assigned, but that is moving and moving quickly. And again, this is just part of if this administration is going to try to manipulate the American people during the shutdown to try to prevent the government from being able to work for all people. We want to be there in court to challenge them.
Let me ask you a question before you segue to the next shutdown litigation. You have, with the shutdown, you've got funding to the court system and civil cases. So the Supreme Court seems to have looked through the cushions of its couch and found enough money to continue until the 17th of October. But the civil courts, the district courts, like Judge Boasberg, issued a standing order that he's not stopping filings, but he's giving the Department of Justice extended period of times to respond to civil cases. How is that impacting Democracy Forward?
I'm so glad you asked this, because this was part of the way in which the president tried to bully people. Is there were a bunch of media articles around about how the courts would stop functioning. We're like, well, Donald Trump wishes the courts would start functioning because he loses. I mean, look at this Oregon decision by his own.
Can they stop functioning?
A point. Yeah. I mean, and so we're like, we think the courts are going to do their job. So actually what we've seen has been quite remarkable. I mean, even the orders like the one you referenced from Judge Boasberg, that's in the District of Columbia, which is where a lot of these cases are filed, because that's where many of the government offices are. That order actually only seeks to extend deadlines on cases that are non-urgent cases. So cases that are not in that temporary restraining order or preliminary injunction posture, and that it expressly exempts out those cases. And we've already had district court judges. The government has come in and said, oh, we need to stay these deadlines. And the district court judges have said, no, you don't, because you're part of a preliminary injunction proceeding. there are a number of other courts across the country that have actually issued orders to say that they are not going to extend the government's deadlines. They're so concerned about the urgency of what is happening. And then some courts, are obviously going to extend some and not extend others. Usually if it involves life or property, those types of matters are really urgent and have to move forward. Unfortunately, with the way this administration is governing, many of the things that we have to challenge right now involve people's life or their property. And so I'm so glad you asked that, because this was part of the bluster out of the White House, trying to bully people. I'm going to fire everyone across the federal government. The courts are going to start functioning, and you see the courts doing what the courts are supposed to be doing.
I liked your response, which I could summarize as "You wish the courts would stop functioning."
Right. I mean, so that's happened, and we have this this threat again to fire people, and we're litigating on that. The other thing that you've probably seen, which is just remarkable, is that even though this is the first time in the history of the country the government has shut down when one political party has controlled all elements of the government, the president and the federal agencies across the administration are putting, and I just want to say, I don't use this word lightly, but they're putting propaganda on government websites. Literally in 2025 in the United States of America, there are government websites that say the government is shut down because of the radical left or because of Democrats. Just labeling this. And then they even took a step further, and they put out of office messages from federal employees who are career civil servants who are nonpartisan, with all of this political language in it that's a violation of multiple laws.
Sounds like compelled First Amendment speech.
Correct. So we went to court on that over the weekend. It was a busy weekend for all of our team at Democracy Forward. So we went to court on that over the weekend. Also sent the government a demand letter, told them they needed to respond by today. They have actually now modified some of the language, but it's still language that blatantly violates the First Amendment. And so you'll start seeing our team push that case.
Before you move forward, Skye, let me play for our audience my favorite one, which is Caroline Leavitt's White House voicemail when you call the White House. We'll play that clip now.
Yes.
Thank you for calling the White House comment line. Hello, America. This is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Democrats in Congress have shut down the federal government because they care more about funding health care for illegal immigrants than they care about serving you, the American people. Until Democrats vote for the clean, Republican-backed continuing resolution to reopen the government, the White House is unable to answer your call or respond to your questions. We look forward to hearing from you again very soon. And in the meantime, please know President Trump will never stop fighting for you. Thank you, and God bless you.
Okay, so I think you've got now the flavor of what the Trump administration is doing. And as you said, a very good point that has not been pushed enough by the media, and we certainly will, which is, why are we shut down? Why are you blaming the Democrats? It sounds like you should be blaming a small holdout group of Republicans who aren't siding with Speaker Johnson in order to get something passed. You only have to negotiate with the Democrats because you have such a thin margin. And that's back to one of your earlier points when you join us here on Legal AF about how people can make a difference while the litigators are doing their thing. It's on electorally and protesting and the rest.
Right. And I just, this is a government that is already shut down because this is what Donald Trump and Elon Musk started doing day one, decimating the government, its ability to really function for people. I'm proud of the American people. They're seeing this for what it is. And I'm proud of our courts and our brave clients that are going to court. And I know you want to ask me about more stuff too. I do just want to highlight also over the weekend, we did see, and I know you've covered this, but we saw a Trump appointed judge in the District of Oregon, issuing an order, then having to have another emergency hearing to issue another order to keep the National Guard from our cities. This is the courts doing what they should. This is a judge that was appointed by President Trump. This is what we want to see in this country, is that courts, regardless of background or how a judge may have gotten to the bench, doing what they need to do in this moment.
And what we don't want to see is what Donald Trump and how he and his henchmen have responded, which is to attack her as a terrorist and a insurrectionist, effectively trying to incite violence at a time where he created a tinderbox in the United States. And you've got a judge whose house burned down in front of her in South Carolina. This is not the time to be calling
exactly.
to call the judge in Portland, Oregon, an insurrectionist.
It is really beyond the pale, and I am also very proud, I'll just say, of all the lawyers, of all the judges, but of the American people. People are seeing this for what it is. That's what the polling is showing. You see people out on the streets, you see people trying to help their neighbors in places like Chicago and throughout Illinois or in Oregon, and so we're just going to all have to keep doing that together.
Yeah. So do you want to talk, why don't we talk about
Sure.
the H-1B program and how Donald Trump is trying to continue to destroy the American economy by denying businesses the ability to expand and staff using technical people that don't exist in America and have to generally be brought from overseas.
So, right. So this is really about the American economy. It's also about corruption. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But the H-1B visa program, it is a program that has been responsible for the United States being able to be an importer of human talent, right? Of specialized skills, of people who hold specialized skills in the tech sector, but also, and don't let this get lost, also skills in the medical professions. A lot of our rural hospitals across America, hospitals in places that are more often associated with Donald Trump's base than with more progressive leaning bases, rely on the ability of medical talent to come and to be here and in order to staff our rural hospitals. So there's a range of professions that are affected by this. And the president went in an executive order on one of his late Friday night executive orders, wants to put a $100,000 fee on every HB1 visa. It caused a ton of chaos in the moment. Companies were communicating with their workers who were maybe overseas visiting friends, saying, you've got to get back into the country immediately. That pressure and the fact that they knew, we were about to sue caused the administration, they backed off of saying it was an immediate thing that was going to happen, but it's still a policy. And then to make matters worse, he has said, well, there could be some exceptions to this. So he's basically inviting that some people may fare better under this system than others, which is really an invitation for corruption, is something that's not going to help the American people. So we are in court suing, and we're suing on behalf of a really tremendous coalition, because
I love that coalition. Tell them some.
It's an amazing coalition. It's unions, it's small businesses, healthcare, healthcare folks with healthcare interest. The H-1B visa program is not a program that everyone universally loves. It's not a program that everyone agrees with every single element of it. I think it's certainly a program that many reasonable people would say probably needs to have some reform in some way. But the way the president has done this is totally unlawful. It's going to hurt Americans. It's going to make things more expensive here. It's going to, compromise our ability to stay innovative. And people are seeing through it and banding together to challenge what the president's done. So that's really inspirational.
Well, let me just, from the caption of your case, I can't think of a case where the following groups would be brought together: Global Nurse Force, the Society of the Divine Word, the United Auto and Aerospace and Agriculture Workers. These are nurses, these are medical professionals, these are pastors who are all victims of Donald Trump's gloating about his, that was the same announcement where he announced the $5 million Trump card and the platinum and the gold. Like he said, like they're selling credit cards, which, as you said, is a place for exploitation and for corruption. And I'll give one example to our audience about why this is important. It just happened. South Korea is building a battery factory in Georgia. Okay. They didn't have enough Americans or native born to actually build the factory. But once the factory was built, it was going to employ tens of thousands or whatever of Georgians and other Americans. So they had to bring the South Korea team in to build the battery factory. That's the group that Donald Trump had chained and shackled. They're our allies, by the way. One of the several hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in American economy that was supposed to be coming from South Korea. Instead, he had them removed by ICE while they were in the middle of creating the factory. But the skilled workers may be here for a short amount of time or something, but it ultimately employs other Americans who have the other skill set to run that business.
Absolutely. And we have to decide in this country, do we want to be ahead or do we want to be behind? And the HB1 visa program has enabled our country to stay on the cutting edge of innovation. We are calling it an innovation ban, which is what President Trump is trying to do, is to ban innovation and cutting edge professionals and technologies from the country. And then you have the fact that it will hurt rural hospitals, our healthcare delivery system, our nonprofit system, faith communities. And so anyway, I'm very proud of the team for this case and of all of the tremendous clients that have come together. And as I said, that have come together and seen through. You may have a particular issue with some element of the HB1 visa program. I mean, who doesn't have a particular issue with some element of policy? But that doesn't mean that the president gets to try to engage in corruption and violate the law and just run roughshod over the American people, the rights, and the American economy.
I
so
agree
proud of people for seeing through that.
The H-1B program has some issues, and there's been some exploitation of it. And that's been well documented. The New York Times, which Donald Trump says is always featuring, did a whole expose about H-1Bs, which would be normally in a normal Congress would be the way that you move towards reform and you just fix it, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and get rid of it or
and
charge
you don't
more
prioritize corruption over the American people and the American economy.
And I don't know how he gets past the fact that the cost has to match the actual administrative expense. That's in the federal rule. I mean, how do you charge $100,000 for something that costs $1,000 to process? I just don't understand it. Now let's finish our time together with. This is a very good teachable moment. Last time we were together a week or so ago, we talked about how FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, where it starts, you send the request to the department. They have a statutory period of time to respond, or if they don't respond, it may lead to a lawsuit. And we talked about Tom Homan, now the border czar, and a videotape from September of 2024 in which a bag of cash was passed to Tom Homan on video that we've heard about by FBI undercover, who he thought was federal contractors. The bag of cash was taxpayer dollars masquerading as a bribe. He apparently kept it. And yet Todd Blanche and Kash Patel somehow concluded that there was no crime and no crime committed. Yet, we were watching Comey, the S show that's going on in the Eastern District of Virginia. Somehow Lindsay Insta Prosecutor Halligan came up with, there's definitely a crime on perjury, but they couldn't find it with a bag of cash being handed to their border czar. So what happened with the FOIA and why are you in court?
Well, the administration hasn't responded as they should have to our request for expedited processing, to our request. So we sued this morning. Our team put together a great lawsuit. We're in court. We will update you as the schedule gets set and as we move forward. But again, I do think it's a teachable moment. And we want every American to know that in this moment, we do have tools that we can use to expose what is happening, to demand that the people know, and we're going to use those tools. And last time we talked about FOIA, there were some comments online. I try not to read all of them, but I read some that said, does this really matter because, Trump ignores the courts? And I'm always the first person that's happy to talk to anyone about that because we have so many cases and we are coming into contact with people. And you saw this over the weekend, Stephen Miller trying to threaten judges, the administration trying to undermine the courts. But what we want everyone to know is that in the vast majority of these cases, we're able to get to the truth. We are able to get to the relief that our clients need. And some of it, you have to be very persistent. And I'm not saying that it's easy, and it's not that they're not going to try, but we are committed to pushing this and feel really good about the case that we filed this morning.
About, if my math is right, about a quarter or more of the cases that have been filed against the Trump administration are with Democracy Forward involved and leading the charge. It is an important public interest group. It's a law firm for democracy, and it's led by Skye Perriman. We're so pleased to have the relationship we have with you on Legal AF. For those that want to know more or donate or contribute time or whatever it is, in the notes, you'll find all the appropriate links to Democracy Forward. Skye, so great to have you back on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Right. Michael Popok and Skye Perriman here on Legal AF. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button, slide over to Legal AF Substack, where you will find many of the postings and filings that Skye talked about. We'll have them up there for you to read. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.